when we come to the book of Genesis, it feels like it's written in a vacuum. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Like nothing else is there. And when we come to that text, we tend to read it that way. And when we do, I think we make huge, huge mistakes. The book of Genesis is not written in a vacuum. The book of Genesis is first told, the story, the creation story, is first told 2,000 years into human history. 2,000 years have passed. And the first time God is going to tell this epic myth story. Let me clarify. The word myth is a technical word, and it means a foundational story that you build your whole life's perspective on. That is a myth. A myth does not mean false or make-believe. That is, so when I use the word myth, if I use the word myth, know that I mean absolute, huge, foundational story which people center their whole life on. Those are the myths of the American myth. We have a couple. We have one that we are built out of rebellion and freedom. That's a myth, and we build our whole society on that myth. Is that false? No. Is it so big that it really grounds us and centers us in our own mind? Yes. Liberty, that's one of our myths. It's huge. It swallows all of our life. That is Genesis. It is a myth. It's epic. It is supposed to ground your whole life, but it is not told to Adam. It is not told to Noah. It's not told to Abraham. The first time the creation story is uttered, it is uttered to Moses. 2,000 years. It's not told in a vacuum. The creation story is told at a huge time in world history of epic meltdown. The Egyptian empire is about to absolutely implode. The foundational myths of the world are going to come crumbling down. The gods, the worldviews, the social structure, the city-states around Egypt, the very foundations, the gods, the powers, the past, the future, they are all about to get absolutely decimated. God is in time. He is raising up his own nation. A new nation is going to be birthed. A new people, a new race of people is going to and is about to come to power. God is going to take his people in time, in history, and he's going to lift them out of slavery, and he is going to put them into the very center of the world. And God is going to give to that people at this time a new myth, so that as the world travels through Israel, because they are at the crossroads of the world, that God can fashion the world brand new, with a brand new story that it would build on, that the whole world would get a new perspective in time, not in a vacuum. How would God tell a 2,000-year-old story to somebody? Ask yourself that question. Answer it in your mind. How would God tell a 2,000-year-old story. By the time Moses is here, the story he is going to learn is already an ancient, prehistory, unknown from time way past, from the time of giants, of the time of myth and foundation and wonder and creation, to Moses that is already beyond reckoning. How would God tell a story? Would he write a history book? Or would he tell it differently? Let me ask you this question. Let's make it more simple. If God were going to, if I went to school, if I'm 12 years old and I come back from summer break, I grew up at a Christian camp. I didn't grow up there, but my parents were the cooks. So I was at this Christian camp in Wisconsin for like 8 to 10 weeks every summer. That's kind of like growing up there. You eventually own that place, right? As a kid, you know every square inch. You know where everything is. And in real time, one of the first things we would do when we'd go back to school, some teacher would say, write a little report on what did you do this summer, right? What did you do this summer? And mine would be, well, I went to camp, and on day 1, I caught over 100 frogs. On day 2, I caught 6 snakes. On day 3, I shot so many arrows, and on and on and on, right? That's what we do. That's how we would tell our experience of camp. We would tell that story historically. We would say, what did you do? Day 1, here's what I did. Would God tell the story the same way? Would God tell the story of my camp experience with that same perspective? And I think I can convince you that no, that's not at all how God would tell the story. God would tell the story something more like this. When Bruce was 12 years old, he barely knew me, and he really didn't know what to do with me. And on day 1, I arranged it in such a way that I could get Bruce to grow up at camp, where he had the chance of getting to know me. And on day 1, when he showed up, and he began to explore the world that I put him in, he was enthralled with nature. He was in wonder. His mind was open. He was ready to hear from me. He was actually ready to begin to seek me. But then on day 2, he ran into an adult who was unkind, and in that day, Bruce reacted against me. He took out that frustration with me, and on day 2, Bruce, you really wrestled with me all day. You wrestled with God all day. Why am I here, you said? Who is this God that these people are representing? Why are they trying to impose him on my world? You were so far away from me. But on day 3, you ran into a whole different kind of leader. And on day 3, my messenger touched you and spoke to you in such a way that your heart then began to get more open. And so I started to show myself to you here and there. How do you think God would tell the story of my childhood when I was at camp? Would he tell me the details that I forgot? Well, at 12:30, you had to go to nap time. Would he tell me that? Or would he tell me about my heart? God tells Moses 2,000 years of human history in 68 pages, in 9 stories, through 3 families. That's Genesis, the entire book of Genesis. 68 pages, 2,000 years of human history, 9 stories, 3 families. Do you think God is giving us a day-to-day accounting? In 60, no, oh no. This is not what's happening. Let's slow down. Let me take you through history. Oh, that's not the map I wanted, but let's see if I have the other one. No, I don't. Okay, it's the one I'm going to use. Over here, this right here is Mesopotamia. This is the birthplace of humanity. Both science and the Bible would tell you human beings rose from the earth right here. Mesopotamia. It's rich with stories. It's rich with evidence and archaeology. It is ground zero of everything we are as a species. Mesopotamia. The first great civilization here is Mesopotamian. It is Sumerian. It is future Babylon. Babylon is right here. It officially comes after Egypt, which is here. We'll get there. Right now we're in first stories. We are in the Tower of Babel time. Babylon, the birthplace, Sumeria, the Samaritans. They have a creation myth. It is the first creation myth, the first foundational story that humanity built its whole worldview on. Where are we? What story are we in? And how do we fit into that story? The first story on the planet, long before the Bible's creation story. Hundreds, half a millennium before the Bible, before the creation story, before Moses. People long before Moses already have an epic that they build their life on. It is called Enuma Elish. There it is. Those are the first 2 words in the story. It is written here, and it is written in a time when in the Bible, you're in the Tower of Babel time. The Tower of Babel, what those people are doing there, they are doing based on their worldview. They are going up to touch the sky. Why? Here's our story. The Sumerian myth. Before there were any gods, there were the waters, which themselves were in fact gods. Kind of. There was the deep, deep waters, and those gods were Apsu. And there was the high top waters, and those were salty waters, and that was Tiamat. And Tiamat and Apsu were the great eternal nothing. And yet they were nothing. But in the course of time, Tiamat and Apsu began to mingle. And out of their minglings, they made the first gods. and the first gods for an epoch of time ruled. But they began to realize that they too could bear children. And they bore to themselves children, gods, the lesser gods, and they had lots of them. And the lesser gods were out of control, and they were running around over Tiamat and Apsu, over the waters. They were just running around, and they were making chaos, and they were out of control. And Apsu, the deep, dark waters, said to himself, I can get no rest around here. I need some rest. I get no rest at night, and I get no rest in the day. The gods, the children of the gods are too noisy. I will go up. I will talk to Tiamat, and we will kill the gods and return back to Tiamat and Apsu, the great nothing. Well, the gods learned of that plan. Before they were killed, they learned of that plan, and all the children and all the first gods got together, and they said to themselves, let us build for ourselves a great God who will rule us and who will in fact be strong enough to kill Apsu and Tiamat. Let's build ourselves a God who can defend us. And they built Marduk. They built Marduk. They built a great God, a shining God, a God who looked like bronze, whose eyes were like lightning, flames of fire. He was the greatest God. He was all powerful. And when we created Marduk, when we created Marduk, he said to us, he said, I will do this thing, but for doing it, you must all pledge your loyalty to me for all time, and I will be the high God for all time. And if you all pledge your loyalty to me, I will kill our creators, our makers. I will kill the great nothing. And they all agreed. So, Marduk went and he killed Apsu, his father. And then his mother, Tiamat, the great seas, the salt water, rose up in fury, and she opened up her mouth. That's her. Sometimes she's displayed as a multi-headed dragon. Tiamat opened wide her mouth with giant waves of teeth to swallow up, to kill Marduk. And he grabbed the four winds and he threw the four winds down her throat, and her mouth was opened wide and she could not shut it. And while she was forced open like a balloon, he took his great bow and shot her and cut her right in half. And on that day, Marduk took the top part of his mother's body and he formed the sky with her. And he took the bottom half of her body and he made dry land. And on dry land, he realized that all of a sudden, the foundational gods were gone, and who would do all the work of tending this space? And so Marduk, the great sun in the sky, the shining one, shone down on the land, and he brought forth people. And he brought forth the kingdom of Babylon, so that his people, the kingdom of Babylon, of Sumeria, would govern the earth for him, worship him, and do all the work that the dead gods could no longer do. That's Samaria. It's an epic myth to found the people of the earth. What story are we in? We are in a story of chaos with fierce gods. And we sacrifice to those gods so that they don't kill us like they could do their own creators. We are the Samaritans. We can do anything. We can do anything, and because we have been given the power and the responsibility of tending this space and keeping Marduk happy, let us build a tower and reconnect Tiamat to herself, the ground and the sky. And the Tower of Babel was born not out of an idea of engineering, but out of an idea of worship. And they said in their hearts, let's reach the sky, the top of Tiamat. Yeah, it's the first story on the planet that told us who we were. And in that story, we are slaves, and we are an afterthought. Slaves and afterthoughts. And when God tells his story to Moses, Moses is a slave of slaves. That makes him virtually nobody, because all people are slaves to Marduk. And Moses and his people are slaves of those slaves. When Genesis is told, God is interacting with the story of the Samaritans, with Tiamat, the great deep. On day one, God's Spirit was over the deep waters. What? Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's not first. That's the third creation story on the planet. The second one is after them. They rise and fall. The flood ends this story. They don't get to become Babylon. That's after Egypt. They were the Samaritans in Mesopotamia. And the flood, God says, let's put an end to this right now. But then the Tower of Babel, with new tongues and new people and new spaces. And then Egypt comes to power and rises up. And the Egyptians have their own creation story. That's important to us. It's very important to us because Moses, when he hears God's story, he is in time in Egypt. Right? What was he raised with? He's raised with this story. Long before there were gods, and long before there was time itself, there was the great deep, the waters. And they were nothingness. They were non-existence. And then, in the great waters, Amun says to himself, I want to exist. I want to create myself the way that I like myself. I want to be the God that I want to be. And the great Amun raised himself up out of the waters in an egg. It answers the question, what came first, by the way? I rose out of a great sphere, an egg, and there beside me was a pyramid. A pyramid. Pyramid was first in the creation story of the Egyptians. in their creation story, the pyramids are older than themselves. So if you are convinced that the great megaliths pre-existed the cultures of today, the Egyptians would also say the same. A great pyramid arose, and Amun stood on the pyramid, and he began to create as the great God who created himself, all shining and all powerful. He began to create spaces around him. He was Atum, and he created first Shu, the air god, and next Tefnut, the moisture god. And the air god and the moisture god got together, and they created Geb and Nut. This is all over Egypt. This is their creation story. And Geb is this god here, who is the ground. And Tefnut, and Nut, the sky god. She is the dome. She is the sky. Also gods, like the Babylonian gods. But when he first made them, Geb and Nut, they were bound together, and they rolled and tumbled through time. They rolled and tumbled through time, bound together as one. And so Shu, the god of air, their father, got between them and pushed them apart. And he holds Nut away from Geb. And then the great god Atum built all other gods. And when he had children and made other gods, some of them got lost. They got lost into the great nothingness. And he went searching for them. And when he found them, he was so glad in his heart that he began to shed tears of joy. And when those tears landed on Geb, the ground, they turned into people. And after time, Atum bound himself to the god Ra. This is the Egyptian worldview. You can find this image all over the place. You can find it in all the burial chambers. You can find it on the coffins. You can find it in all the places. It's everywhere. It is their Genesis story, and here it is. This is Shu, the air god, who is separating his son and daughter. And this is the great god, the sun, who bound himself to the sun. If you watch even popular movies like The Mummy, you will hear them say, Atum Ra. Yes, Atum Ra. That is, Atum bound himself to the sun, Ra, and here's their myth. And they worshipped the sun not because it was bright and made things grow, but because it was their great god. And all the ancients, even in the Bible, worshipped the suns and stars and believed that they were beings. Atum Ra would go across the sky, and he would then get in an ark. And the sky god, his daughter, Nut, would swallow him every night. And then every single morning she would give birth to Ra, Atum Ra, and he would be reborn, and he would go across the sky where she swallows him, and he takes the great ark through her body, and every morning is born. She gives birth to their God, and the very first thing out of the ground is a pyramid, and their gods self-create, and in their story, humans are nothing but an afterthought, the growing tears of joy. The whole world is here, not for us at all. We're an afterthought. We should worship them because they're fickle. They eventually fill the entire space with gods. They have thousands of them. Look at, I put it in there. Yeah. Look at this picture again. There's his daughter, there's his son, here's the great God. But his arms get tired. This is a lot of work, holding up the sky. And so he has eternity and infinity, other gods that he created, holding up his arms. Eternity and infinity, well, they obviously don't get tired. Those are good gods to create. In the story of Israel and in the story of Moses, God tells a Bible story that looks just like that. That should remind you of a Bible story. What Bible story? Israel is at war, and God tells Moses, go up on that mountain and hold the staff above your head. And when your arms get tired, have Aaron and Hut hold your arms up. Get in that pose. And let's demonstrate who really has power. That is not just some odd Bible story. It is not how powerful the staff is. This is our God interacting with people so that they change their worldview. They were raised on this. And God is pulling them out of there, and He's crushing Egypt, and He's destroying the whole world. And both of those worldviews are decimated with the 10 plagues. The 10 plagues happen before Moses writes Genesis. Before he tells his world-creating, mind-perceiving, life-building creation myth. Long before that, God destroys both of the worldviews with the 10 plagues. The waters, the deep, splits open the sea so they can go through. He holds the sun still. Ra's not the great God. I can make him stop. I can shut him off. I can make darkness and I can make light. They don't give life. They don't protect. They're not in control. Their arms aren't holding up the world. God is not speaking in a vacuum when He writes Genesis. He is not writing it before time. He is writing it to Moses. And He is replacing on this planet 2 worldviews that are all over ancient archaeology, that Moses himself was raised on. At that time, Moses was born, and he was no ordinary child. For 3 months, he was cared for by his family. When he was placed outside, Pharaoh's daughter took him and brought him up as her own. Moses was educated in all the wisdom of the Egyptians. And God had to recreate Moses. And at the burning bush, Moses interacts with Yahweh for the first time. And he says, "Who are you? And who am I?" And Genesis is written in time to a people. And the Bible is full of interactions with those two worldviews. The Bible is not ignorant of them, and the Bible doesn't ignore them. The Bible addresses both Babylonian and Egyptian worldviews as it begins to unfold the text so that God can recreate his people. Let me read some text to you and be amazed that you have read the Bible through and have not recognized those stories. Job 26. He marks out the horizon on the face of the waters, on the face of the deep, for the boundaries between light and darkness. The pillars of heavens quake, aghast at his rebuke. By his power, he churned up the great sea. By his wisdom, he cut Rahab in pieces. By his breath, the skies became fair. His hand pierced the great dragon. And these are but the outer fringe of his works. How faint the whisper we hear of him. Who then can understand the thunder of his power? And the author of Job is interacting with the worldview and saying, who, in fact, is it who slew the great dragon of the deep? That is God in time, talking to people who are in time. Psalm 89, the heavens praise your wonders, Yahweh, your faithfulness too, in the assembly of the holy ones. For who in the skies can compare with you, Yahweh? Who is like Yahweh among the sons of God? In the council of the holy ones, God is greatly feared. He is more awesome than all who surround him. Who is like you, Yahweh, God Almighty? You, Yahweh, are mighty, and your faithfulness surrounds you. You rule over the Tiamat, the surging seas. When its waves mount up, you still them. You crushed Rahab. Rahab's not a real thing. Rahab is a chaos monster. It is the beast on the land. It is the Babylonian worldview. You crushed Rahab like one of the slain. With your strong arm, you scatter your enemies. The heavens are yours, and yours also the earth. You are the one who founded the earth. Genesis is not just written in a vacuum that you should read it like a here's what I did at summer. It is deeply embedded in a culture that the Bible is aware of and interacts with. Isaiah, awake, awake, arm of Yahweh, clothe yourself with strength. Awake as you did in days gone by, as in generations of old. Was it not you who cut Rahab into pieces, who pierced that monster through? Or was it Marduk? Or is it Yahweh, who's really in charge of this world? Was it not you who dried up the sea and brought forth land? Or was that on Utnam, the waters of the great deep? That is not nothing. We read the Bible like it's written in a vacuum, like, here's what I did at summer, and oh, it's way more beautiful than that. Who made a road in the depths of the sea that the redeemed might cross? Job 38. God speaking himself to Job. God's words. Then Yahweh spoke to Job out of the storm. He said, who is this that obscures my plans with words without knowledge? Brace yourself like a man. I will question you, and you answer me instead of the other way around. Where were you when I laid the earth's foundations? Tell me if you understand. Who marked off its dimensions? Surely you know. Who stretched out a measuring line across it? On what were its footings set? Or who laid its cornerstones while the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy? Who shut up the sea behind doors when it burst forth from the womb? When I made the clouds its garments and wrapped it in thick darkness, when I fixed limits on it and set its doors and bars in place, when I said, this far you may come and no further. Who tamed the great sea? Was it the gods of the Egyptians? Was it the gods of the Babylonians? No, it's God interacting with a real people in real time. And He's trying to rock their brains and rock their world so that they build their whole life on the truth of their new myth, their new story, which is meant to be replacement and foundation. Here is where your proud waters halt. That's not how you talk to water, but it is how you talk to a chaos god. Have you ever given orders to the morning or shown the dawn its place? Do you lead the sun across the darkness of the night? Or is it me? Or is it Atum Ra, who gets swallowed by Shu, who gives him birth? Who is it that gives the sun its birth every day? Have you journeyed to the springs of the sea? Have you gone to the depths of the bottom where water originates? Have you seen the great God at the bottom? Or walked in the recesses of the deep? Have you seen the gates of the deepest darkness? What is the way to the abode of light? And where does darkness reside? We are so past that. Why doesn't God talk to him in our language? Well, light is this thing, it's actually just energy, and it doesn't have a place like that. It all, there's this exploding thing up in the sky, and the light rays, because Moses wouldn't get that, and God is better than that. God is talking to a people because he wants to reach a people. Can you take them to their places? Do you know the paths of their dwelling? Surely you know, you were already born. You have lived so many years. Have you entered the storehouses of the snow or seen storehouses of the hail? What is the way to the place where lightning is stored? Oh yeah, but God, why are you lying to Job? Because that's not how lightning works. Why don't you just explain friction? The clouds rub against each other and make friction, and friction gets grounded by the earth, and so it just pops. Why didn't he do that? Who fathers the drops of dew? Is it the moisture God, as you were raised with at school, Moses? Who gives birth to the frost in the heavens? It's not poetry. God is interacting with Job's worldview because he's winning Job over to a brand new worldview. And if he just gives them science, do you know what we do with science? We fit it into our worldview. We still do that. God isn't trying to fix their science. He knows we'll invent the wheel at some point. It's not God's job. God is concerned with our mind and our soul and our heart. And he's going to interact with how we see the world, not how we understand microwaves. Can you bind the chains of the Pleiades? Can you loosen Orion's belt? Oh, why doesn't he just tell them those are stars? They're not stars. Those are galaxies. And they're so far apart that it doesn't even make sense to ask that question. But what if it's a God that they worship? And God is claiming to be the one and only. Not in an empty sky, but in a full sky. Who in the heavens can compare to you, O Yahweh, who rules in the midst of your council, your holy ones? No one who is among you can compare to you. You are higher than all of them. Can you bind the chains of the Pleiades? Can you loosen Orion's belt? Can you bring forth the constellations in their seasons and lead out the bear with his cubs? That's a constellation too. That's not real bears. Do you send lightning bolts on their way? Do they report to you and say, here we are? Or do they report to me? Oh God, Psalm 74. Last one. Oh God, why have you rejected us forever? Why does your anger smolder against the sheep of your pasture? Remember the nation you purchased long ago, the people of your inheritance whom you redeemed, Mount Zion where you dwelt. Turn your steps towards these everlasting ruins. All this destruction the enemy has brought on your sanctuary. Your foes roared in their place where you met us. They set up their standard as signs. They behave like men wielding axes and cut through a thicket of trees. They burned away every place where you, God, was worshipped in the land. We are given no signs from God. No prophets are left. How long will the enemy mock you, God? Why do you hold back your hand, your right hand? Take it from the folds, pull it out of your pockets. Take it from the folds of your garment and destroy them. But God is my king from long ago. He brings salvation on the earth. It was you who split open the sea by your power. You broke the mighty multiple heads of the sea monster. You killed Tiamat. You have rocked Babylon before. Why don't you do it again? It was you who crushed the heads of Leviathan and gave it as food to the creatures of the desert. It was you who opened up the springs. You dried up the ever-flowing rivers. You brought dry land. The day is yours and the night. You established the sun. Why say that? Because everyone believes the Son's a God who established himself. It was you who established the sun and the moon. It was you who set all the boundaries of the earth. Rise up, O God, and defeat your cause. Do not ignore the clamor of your adversaries, the uproar of your enemies, which rises continually. You have done it before. You have rocked the world before. You have brought Sumeria down before. You have brought the Egyptians down before. Do it again. That's all that psalm is. But when it tells the story of before, it tells it in those worldviews. That doesn't make God small. That makes him huge. That's not him beating an army. It's beating all the gods who were the power behind that army. You are the great God. You have defeated all claims to that. Here's the point. When we finally get to Genesis 1, we are not going to read it like a report. Here's what I did at summer camp this week. That's not what it is. It is written to Moses after the 10 plagues, when God wrecks the worldviews of the world, and he is building for himself a brand new nation, and he has given them in 68 pages something to build their eternities on. And he wants us to build our eternities on it as well. In 68 pages, he tells 2,000 years minimum of human history. And he does it, here's the bigger point, he does it to a person in space and time. Because his big claim is that he is the God who loves. And so he steps into real history with a real people, and he speaks to them in a way that their hearts can respond, and that should give us awe, because no story except this story has at its foundation a God who cares where our hearts are at and wants us to long after him, to know that we are made on purpose, for a purpose, to be his image, to rule with him at our side as a friend who will rise up and reign over time and space with him. But not from far away, from right here. Moses, I know what you are doing. Hagar in the wilderness, thinking she's going to die, and God shows up. Now I know you are the God who sees me. Moses learns about that story. That's like on page 12. And Moses can relate to that story because God is already the God who sees him. And we are to learn. The Bible is not in a vacuum. It's in this space, capturing our souls and our minds from a God who knows the struggles and and the ways we have created our own space and our own gods to limit him and to bolster ourselves and tell our own stories. Genesis is full. It's so full and it's so rich. I hope I can do it justice. Next week all these weeks are just going to be so important. I hope you're impressed with the Bible. It's so beautiful. Thanks for coming. Let's pray.